The twilight sky beyond was adorned with rich hues of blue and purple, while the city lights began to twinkle as the sun sank beneath the horizon. Olivia reclined in the living room, her fingers gliding over the keyboard of her laptop as she scrolled through the screen. The gentle murmur of the television in the background offers a soothing white noise, wrapping the room in a sense of calm. She cast a fleeting look at the clock. The clock had struck 10, and the apartment lay in a hushed stillness, broken only by the faint, muffled sounds emanating from Ethan's room. It had been since dinner that she last laid eyes on him, and her curiosity began to stir within her. She rose from the couch and glided down the hallway, her bare feet whispering against the polished wooden floor. The door to Ethan's room stood slightly ajar, a gentle glow spilling into the hallway. Olivia lingered, a moment of uncertainty washing over her before she slowly nudged the door open. What she beheld caused her to become utterly still. Ethan reclined on his bed, his back resting against the headboard, a laptop balanced on his knees. The screen illuminated his face with a soft glow, and Olivia's gaze swiftly took in the content of his viewing. A film for grown-ups, one that revealed more than it concealed. Ethan's hand slipped beneath the blanket, his face betraying a blend of focus and remorse. "Ethan," Olivia spoke gently, her voice piercing through the thick stillness. He leaped, his head jerking upward as though he had been discovered in the act of wrongdoing. With a swift motion, he closed the laptop, his cheeks flushing a deep crimson. "Olivia, I was unaware of your arrival," he faltered, drawing the blanket tightly around him as though it might protect him from the weight of her stare. Olivia entered the room, gently shutting the door behind her. With her arms crossed and her back resting against the wall, she wore an expression that was both serene and inquisitive. "What are you up to?" she inquired, despite the answer being excruciatingly clear. Ethan cast his gaze downward, deliberately steering clear of her eyes. I was just..." "It's okay," Olivia interrupted, her tone gentle. "No need for an explanation. I am aware of your actions." The atmosphere grew heavy, an almost palpable silence enveloping the space. Ethan toyed with the edge of the blanket, his heart racing within his chest. He experienced a profound sense of exposure, vulnerability, and overwhelming embarrassment. Olivia approached the bed and settled herself on the edge, her presence a blend of solace and disquiet. She observed him intently for a moment, her gaze becoming tender. "Ethan, would you like to discuss it?" He paused, thoughts swirling in a tempest within his mind. He yearned to dismiss it, to act as if nothing had transpired, yet the intensity of her stare rendered that impossible. "I'm just anxious," he confessed softly, his voice barely rising above a murmur. "What is there to be anxious about?" Olivia inquired, her voice filled with encouragement. With a weary sigh, Ethan raked his fingers through his tousled hair. "Regarding Madison, our relationship has been ongoing for some time now, and she desires to elevate our connection, yet I find myself uncertain about the path forward. I fear that I might falter and find myself in a moment of humiliation." Olivia nodded, her expression contemplative. With a gentle touch, she extended her hand and rested it on his shoulder, offering a sense of comfort. "Ethan, such feelings are entirely natural. Every individual experiences a flutter of nerves during their inaugural encounter. This is a significant moment, and feeling uncertain is perfectly natural." Ethan gazed at her, his eyes brimming with a blend of appreciation and urgency. "But what if I lack the skill for it? What if she feels let down?" Olivia let out a gentle laugh, her fingers pressing reassuringly on his shoulder. "You're delving too deeply into it. Simply embrace your true self. Effective communication is essential. Engage in conversation with her, truly listen to her, and embrace the idea of taking your time. It's not about achieving perfection. It's about embracing the moment." Ethan nodded, yet uncertainty flickered in his gaze. "I find myself yearning for a glimpse of what lies ahead. I wish to avoid disappointing her." Olivia let out a soft sigh, her heart heavy with longing for him. She yearned to comfort him, to dispel his anxieties, yet she understood that words had their limitations. "You'll figure it out," she said, finally rising to her feet. "Simply have faith in your own abilities." She exited the room, gently shutting the door behind her, and rested against the wall in the hallway. Her heart raced, and her mind swirled with a tempest of conflicting emotions. She yearned to assist Ethan, to alleviate his concerns, yet she found herself uncertain of the extent to which she could, or ought to, intervene. As she made her way back to the living room, the haunting image of Ethan's face lingered in her mind. His fragility, his trepidation, his longing for direction. She sank into the couch, her gaze fixed vacantly on the television, thoughts swirling chaotically in her mind. In what ways might she offer her assistance to him? What steps might she take to instill a sense of confidence and readiness in him? The questions lingered in her mind, a persistent ache that promised no rest until she unearthed the truth. For the moment, she released a deep sigh and reclined against the cushions, her mind enveloped in the complexities of her stepson's predicament. The subsequent days were steeped in a palpable tension that Olivia found impossible to overlook. Ethan's confession lingered in the atmosphere, a persistent resonance of his fears. And the widening chasm that separated them. Olivia observed him with increasing intensity, taking note of his restless movements at the table, the distant look in his eyes, as if his thoughts were wandering far beyond the moment. She observed the burden of his concerns bearing heavily upon him, and it ached within her soul. Though not his biological mother, she had always shared a deep bond with Ethan. 5 years prior, when she wed his father, Ethan was merely a bashful teenager, grappling with the complexities of his formative years. As time passed, they forged a connection that was simultaneously nurturing and companionable. Yet, confronted with his vulnerabilities, Olivia experienced a profound desire to assist him, to navigate him through this crucial juncture in his existence, even if it required venturing into unfamiliar realms. One evening, while she was in the kitchen preparing dinner, she found herself gazing out the window, her hands mindlessly chopping vegetables. Ethan lounged in the living room, stretched out on the couch, his fingers gliding over the screen of his phone. He appeared agitated, his leg rhythmically bouncing, a vivid indication of the conflict brewing within him. With a soft sigh, Olivia placed the knife aside and delicately wiped her hands on a towel. She approached the living room, pausing in the doorway for a brief moment before uttering a word. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice slicing through the stillness. He glanced upward, taken aback. "Indeed? Are you all right? There has been a notable silence from you of late." Ethan averted his eyes, a subtle shrug escaping him. "I'm all right, merely contemplating various thoughts." Olivia approached the couch and settled beside him, her face etched with worry. "Does this pertain to our conversation from the other evening? What can you tell me about Madison?" Ethan paused for a moment, then gave a slight nod. "Indeed. I find myself at a loss, unable to quell the incessant worry that plagues my thoughts. It occupies my every thought." Olivia extended her hand, resting it softly on his shoulder, offering a tender squeeze. "Ethan, it's perfectly natural to experience those feelings, yet you mustn't allow them to take over your life. In due time, clarity will reveal itself to you." Ethan gazed at her, his eyes brimming with doubt. "I long for certainty. I wish to avoid any mistakes." Olivia felt a deep pang of longing for him. She yearned to comfort him, to instill the confidence he sought, yet she understood that mere words would fall short. She felt compelled to take action, to find a way to genuinely assist him. That night, as she reclined in her bed, her thoughts surged with a torrent of ideas. She felt an undeniable urge to act, to lead him in a manner that transcended mere words. Yet, how is that possible? She writhed in her restless slumber, her mind a tempest of potential outcomes. As dawn broke, she stirred from her slumber, a plan beginning to take shape in her thoughts. It was daring, unorthodox, and fraught with peril. Yet, she understood that this could be the sole path to aid Ethan. She chose to begin modestly, gauging his response to her subtle approach. In the days that followed, Olivia started to quietly alter her demeanor. She began to don more form-fitting attire within the confines of her home, enveloped in soft, clingy fabrics that beautifully highlighted her curves. She selected a fitted black turtleneck that accentuated her silhouette, complemented by high-waisted jeans that highlighted her slender waist. She draped a delicate, silky robe around her form, the fabric gliding over her skin with each movement, the deep V-neck lines subtly suggesting the contours beneath. She left the bathroom door slightly open while she showered, the sound of water cascading and the delicate fragrance of her perfume wafting into the hallway. Ethan's gaze drifted toward the open door, where he caught fleeting glimpses of her silhouette framed by the frosted glass, steam swirling around her like an alluring shroud. One evening, as she strolled by Ethan in the hallway, she donned a short, fitted dress that accentuated her hips and showcased her legs. The hemline flirted with the boundaries of audacity, and she caught the way his gaze dipped momentarily, a blush creeping across his cheeks. In a moment of unintended folly, she found herself sending him links to adult films, insisting they were intended for a friend. As they lounged in the living room, a text message flashed on his phone, and Olivia feigned ignorance to the way he clumsily handled the device, his cheeks flushing as he hastily shut the app. Every encounter left Ethan both flustered and captivated. He caught himself stealing glances at her when she was unaware, his heart quickening at the sight of her in a snug sweater or the way her hair flowed down her back when she let it fall freely. He found himself perplexed by her behavior, yet he couldn't ignore the impact it had on him. Olivia observed him intently, measuring his responses. In his eyes, she discerned a swirl of confusion, a palpable struggle to make sense of his emotions. It was functioning as intended. Her strategy involved gradually dismantling the walls that separated them, crafting an environment where she could lead him in a manner that felt instinctive, albeit unorthodox. As the week drew to a close, Olivia realized it was time to embrace the next chapter of her journey. As dusk settled, she took a seat, her heart racing in anticipation of the moment that lay ahead. She had deliberated meticulously, considering both the dangers and the possible rewards. It was a daring decision, one that would alter the course of their bond indefinitely, yet she understood it was the sole path to genuinely assist him. As she gazed at Ethan, who sat opposite her at the dinner table, his brow knitted in concentration as he prodded at his meal, she arrived at her conclusion. She would take on the role of his guide, illuminating the path to confidence and attentiveness, ensuring he would never feel adrift or uncertain when the moment arrived. It transcended mere assistance. It was about equipping him with the essential tools to traverse this chapter of his life with both confidence and grace. That night, as she reclined in her bed, her resolve crystallized. She would begin the following day, gradually preparing for the moment when she would present herself as his guide. It was a choice that filled her with both exhilaration and dread, yet she understood it was the sole path to genuinely aid him. With a deep breath and a determined heart, Olivia closed her eyes, surrendering to sleep as her mind began to whirl with the endless possibilities that awaited her in the days ahead. The morning sun poured through the curtains, enveloping Olivia's bedroom in a gentle, golden light. Seated at her vanity, she brushed her hair with slow, deliberate strokes, her thoughts anchored on the day that lay before her. Today marked a pivotal moment in her carefully crafted scheme, a daring leap that could either draw her nearer to aiding Ethan or threaten to unravel the fragile equilibrium they had established. She rose from her seat and made her way to the kitchen, where Ethan sat at the table, a bowl of cereal before him, absorbed in his phone. He glanced up as she stepped into the room, his gaze briefly tracing the contours of her loose robe before he averted his eyes with haste. "Morning," he mumbled, his voice carrying an unusual strain. "Good morning," Olivia replied, her tone airy and relaxed. She filled her cup with steaming coffee and settled against the counter, her legs elegantly crossed. "I've been contemplating a visit to that new Italian restaurant downtown, the one that recently opened its doors. There has been an overwhelming buzz surrounding it." Ethan nodded, a hint of confusion flickering across his face. "Indeed," Olivia went on, her voice relaxed. Why not accompany me? It promises to be an enjoyable experience. Let's transform this into a dinner date. Ethan's eyebrows arched in surprise as he fixed his gaze upon her, unmistakably taken aback. An evening rendezvous over a meal? Of course, Olivia replied, a casual shrug accompanying her words as if it were the most ordinary thing imaginable. Our time together has been scarce of late. It will be delightful to reconnect. Ethan paused, his gaze drifting once more over her attire. I'm uncertain, but perhaps I could consider it. Wonderful, Olivia exclaimed, her smile broadening. It is decided. I shall proceed to secure the reservation for 7. Please ensure you're prepared by that time, all right? Ethan nodded, his expression still tinged with a hint of bewilderment. Very well. With a serene grace, Olivia completed her coffee ritual, placing the cup gently in the sink, her actions deliberate and unhurried. I'll see you tonight, she said, offering him a warm smile before retreating upstairs. Upon entering her room, she exhaled a breath she hadn't known she was holding. The initial move had been made, she had captured his attention, and he had consented to dinner. At this moment, she had to ensure that every detail unfolded as intended. The remainder of the day slipped away in a haze. Olivia dedicated the afternoon to meticulously selecting her outfit for the evening ahead. A crimson, body-hugging dress that had remained untouched for years. The dress embraced her figure perfectly, featuring a flared skirt that gracefully concluded at mid-thigh and a neckline that offered just the right hint of allure without crossing into the realm of the overt. She complemented the ensemble with black heels that elevated her stature, finishing the look with a delicate gold necklace that gracefully adorned her collarbone. She devoted additional moments to her makeup, choosing a smoky eye and a striking red lip that harmonized beautifully with her dress. Her hair flowed in loose waves, cascading elegantly down her back. She gazed at her reflection in the mirror, meticulously adjusting the straps and smoothing the fabric with careful precision. With a sense of fulfillment, she pivoted and descended the stairs, her heart racing with eager expectation. Ethan sat in the living room, clad in a button-up shirt and jeans, anticipation etched on his face. He appeared anxious, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, yet his eyes grew wide at the sight of her. Are you prepared? Olivia inquired, her tone unwavering even as a flurry of butterflies danced in her stomach. Ethan nodded, a lump forming in his throat. Indeed, you appear truly remarkable. Olivia offered a gentle smile. Thank you very much. Let us embark on this journey. They made their way to the restaurant, the air thick with unspoken words and a tension that hung heavily between them. Upon their arrival, the hostess guided them to a snug table nestled in the corner, where the gentle glow of dim lighting and the soothing strains of soft music wove together to craft an intimate ambience. Olivia settled into her seat, gracefully crossing her legs, her dress inching up slightly to unveil a whisper of her thigh. She observed the way Ethan's gaze held for a fleeting second before he averted his eyes, a blush creeping across his cheeks. As they placed their orders, a light conversation flowed between them, filling the air as they anticipated the arrival of their meals. Olivia maintained a cheerful tone, inquiring about Ethan's day, his classes, and his friends. Yet, she noticed the tightness in his shoulders, the way his focus seemed to drift away. As the evening progressed, Olivia started to gently probe the atmosphere. She inclined her body slightly as she spoke, offering him a fleeting view of her cleavage, while her foot softly grazed his leg beneath the table. Ethan tensed, his gaze flickering to hers for a fleeting moment before he averted his eyes, a flush creeping across his cheeks. Is that you, Ethan? Olivia spoke gently, her voice capturing his focus once more. I want you to understand that my support is unwavering. No matter what challenges you face, I'm here to listen. Ethan nodded, yet a flicker of conflict danced in his eyes. I know, he murmured softly. It's simply challenging to express. Olivia extended her hand across the table, gently resting it atop his. I comprehend. Yet, you need not traverse this path in solitude. Ethan's gaze lingered on her hand, a subtle catch in his breath. Olivia, but but before he could complete his thought, Olivia cut him off. "Pardon me for just a moment," she said, rising gracefully and adjusting her dress with a delicate touch. "I must excuse myself for a moment to visit the restroom." She turned and departed, leaving Ethan alone at the table, his thoughts swirling in a tempest. In the restroom, Olivia inhaled deeply, grounding herself in the moment. She delicately lifted the hem of her dress, removing her panties with a graceful motion, folding them with care before placing them into her purse. She applied a final coat of lipstick, glanced at her reflection, and made her way back to the table. As she re-entered the room, Ethan's gaze met hers, revealing a blend of bewilderment and eager expectation. Olivia settled into her seat and delved into her purse, retrieving the neatly folded panties. She pushed them toward him on the table, her voice soft and personal. "Keep these," she said, her gaze firmly meeting his. "They belong to you now." Ethan's gaze lingered on the delicate fabric before him, a flush of crimson spreading across his cheeks. He parted his lips, intent on speaking, yet silence enveloped him instead. Olivia offered a gentle smile, reclining in her chair as she gestured to the waiter. "Check, please," she said, her voice steady and serene. The waiter nodded and departed, leaving Ethan in a state of disbelief, his thoughts swirling as he fixated on the neatly folded panties resting on the table. Olivia savored her wine, her eyes unwavering, fully aware that the evening was merely at its inception. The atmosphere in the restaurant was thick, brimming with an unvoiced tension that neither Olivia nor Ethan could overlook. Ethan's hands quivered as he extended them toward the glass of water, his throat parched, his thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance. The neatly folded panties rested on the table between them, a quiet yet unmistakable emblem of the transformation in their relationship. He found it impossible to meet their gaze. Or perhaps at Olivia. His heart raced within his chest, and he felt as if he were a deer ensnared in the blinding glare of headlights, paralyzed by uncertainty, at a loss for words or actions. Olivia, in contrast, exuded a sense of calm and composure. With a delicate sip of her wine, she kept her gaze fixed on Ethan's face, observing the subtle shifts of emotion that danced across his features. In his eyes, she discerned the turmoil, a blend of confusion, desire, and trepidation. It was precisely what she had envisioned, yet she understood the necessity of proceeding with caution. This was a realm yet to be explored, where a single miscalculation could unravel it all. The waiter approached once more, presenting the check with a careful precision, setting it down on the table with an air of professionalism. With a graceful motion, Olivia extended her hand, retrieving her wallet and bestowing a generous tip. With an elegant rise, she adjusted her dress and cast her gaze upon Ethan. "Are you prepared to embark on this journey?" she inquired, her tone gentle yet resolute. Ethan nodded, a dullness in his expression, his movements deliberate and rigid as he pushed himself up from his chair. He cast a fleeting look at the panties resting on the table, pausing briefly before seizing them and tucking them into his pocket. His face turned a deep shade of crimson, yet he remained silent. They exited the restaurant without a word, the crisp night air a sharp departure from the cozy atmosphere within. Olivia's heels echoed against the pavement, each click a sharp, rhythmic note in the stillness of the evening. Ethan struggled with the keys, his hands trembling as he finally managed to unlock the door and graciously held it open for her. Olivia settled into the passenger seat, crossing her legs with intention, her dress inching up just enough to expose a glimpse of her thigh. She caught a glimpse of Ethan's eyes darting in her direction before he swiftly averted his gaze, his breath hitching as he settled into the driver's seat. The journey back was steeped in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily in the air between them. Olivia stole a sidelong glance at Ethan, observing the way his hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale and taut. Her gaze caught the turmoil etched across his face, the tension in his jaw and the hitch in his breath betraying his struggle to concentrate on the road ahead. "Ethan," she murmured gently, shattering the stillness. He recoiled slightly, his hands clenching the wheel with renewed intensity. "Indeed?" Olivia adjusted her position in the chair, uncrossing her legs with a measured grace before crossing them again, each motion purposeful and alluring. The hem of her dress crept upward, exposing more of her silky, bare thigh. She caught a fleeting glimpse of Ethan's eyes flicking toward her, only to quickly return to the road, his Adam's apple rising and falling as he swallowed with effort. Olivia smiled softly, her eyes tracing the contours of his profile. "You're remarkably silent," she remarked, a playful lilt in her voice. "Is there a thought lingering in your mind?" Ethan shook his head with urgency, his voice taut with tension. "No, just contemplating the meal. It was quite enjoyable." Olivia let out a gentle chuckle, a soft and melodic sound that lingered in the air. "Indeed, it was exquisite," she concurred, her eyes glinting with playful intrigue. She reclined in her seat, her hand draped nonchalantly over the console that separated them. Her fingers grazed his thigh, the contact delicate yet undeniable. She sensed the tension emanating from him, the way his muscles quivered beneath her touch. It was precisely what she desired, to drive him to the brink, to compel him to face his emotions. Yet, she understood the necessity of patience. This was not a matter to be hurried. As they neared a crimson signal, Olivia discreetly adjusted her posture, her dress fluttering to unveil a hint of what was concealed beneath. She observed the way Ethan's breath caught in his throat, his gaze darting toward her for a fleeting moment before he averted his eyes, a flush creeping across his cheeks. She remained silent, allowing the moment to linger, the atmosphere charged with both playfulness and intensity. As the light shifted to green, Ethan pressed down on the accelerator, his fingers curling around the wheel with determination. Olivia reclined in her seat, her gaze wandering to the window, where the city lights melded into a vibrant blur. She held her legs slightly apart, her movements understated yet intentional, preserving the playful ambience without uttering a sound. The remainder of the journey unfolded in quietude, the unspoken tension between them thick in the air. As they finally rolled into the driveway, Ethan turned off the engine and lingered for a moment, his hands firmly clutching the wheel, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Olivia released her seatbelt and pivoted to meet his gaze, her demeanor gentle yet resolute. "Thank you for tonight," she said, her voice imbued with warmth. "I experienced a truly delightful moment." Ethan nodded, yet he found himself unable to meet her gaze. "Likewise," he murmured, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Olivia leaned in, her fingers delicately lifting his chin, compelling him to lock eyes with her. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady yet tender. "Fear not, for I stand by your side. No matter what emotions you are experiencing, I am here to listen." Ethan gazed at her, his eyes overflowing with a tumult of emotions, fear, desire, confusion. He parted his lips, ready to speak, yet silence enveloped him, leaving no words to escape. Olivia smiled tenderly, leaning in to bestow a delicate kiss upon his cheek. "Let's go inside," she said, her voice a gentle balm. As she emerged from the car, the sharp sound of her heels echoed against the pavement, each step bringing her closer to the house. Ethan trailed closely, thoughts swirling in a tempest, his heart thundering within his chest. As they crossed the threshold of the house, the once familiar environment pulsed with an undeniable energy, a sensation that neither could overlook. Olivia placed her purse on the entryway table and faced Ethan, her demeanor serene yet filled with anticipation. "Why don't we sit for a while?" she suggested, her voice a gentle yet resolute whisper. "We can engage in conversation." Ethan paused, his heart racing within his chest. He understood that this transcended mere conversation. The way she had gazed at him in the car, the playful teasing of her movements, all carried a weight of meaning that left him uncertain, hesitant to face what it might entail. Yet, he found himself unable to utter the word no. "Very well," he murmured, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Olivia entered the living room with a smile, her hips swaying gently with each step she took. She paused at the modest bar cart nestled in the corner, lifting a bottle of whiskey high for Ethan's gaze. Are you interested in having one? She inquired, her voice light yet her gaze sparkling with playful intent. Ethan nodded, yet he found it impossible to meet her gaze. Of course, he replied, his voice raspy. Olivia leaned forward with intention to mix the drink, her dress inching up slightly, offering him a glimpse of what was hidden beneath. She was acutely aware of his gaze, and she savored the moment, her actions measured and intentional as she filled 2 glasses with whiskey. Ethan's breath caught in his throat, his cheeks blooming with a deep shade of crimson as he averted his gaze in haste. His heart raced, a wild drumbeat in his chest, while his mind whirled in a chaotic dance, struggling to grasp the unfolding reality. Olivia stood tall and approached him, balancing a glass in each hand. She offered one to him, their fingers grazing lightly in the exchange, before settling on the edge of the couch, her legs elegantly crossed, the fabric of her dress inching up to unveil the soft contour of her thigh. She beckoned him closer, her gaze intertwining with his. Ethan trailed behind her, his pace measured and uncertain. He settled onto the couch, intentionally creating a small yet significant distance between them. He found it impossible to meet her gaze, his eyes glued to the floor as he nervously toyed with the hem of his shirt. The neatly folded panties remained in his pocket, an ever-present symbol of the unresolved tension that lingered between them. Olivia regarded him intently, her features gentle yet shrewd. She observed the turmoil reflected in his gaze, the way his muscles tightened as though preparing for an impending storm. She leaned in just a bit, her hand finding a place on the couch between them, her fingers grazing his leg softly. "Ethan," she murmured softly, her voice slicing through the stillness. "Gaze upon me." He paused, his breath catching as he finally faced her. His eyes were wide, brimming with a blend of fear and curiosity, and Olivia felt a deep ache for him in her heart. With a soft gesture, she extended her hand and laid it over his, her warmth offering a sense of comfort and assurance. "There's no need to be afraid," she said, her voice a gentle balm. "I stand by your side. Whatever emotions you are experiencing, I am here to listen." Ethan gulped, his throat parched. I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice quivering with uncertainty. Olivia smiled gently, her thumb gliding over the back of his hand. "You needn't say a word," she remarked. "Simply lend me your ear." She inched nearer to him on the couch, her leg lightly grazing his. The warmth radiating from her was mesmerizing, and Ethan could feel his heart pounding as he fought to concentrate on what she was saying. Every move Olivia made was deliberate, crafted to intensify the tension that simmered between them. She uncrossed her legs with a languid grace, allowing her dress to inch upward, before recrossing them, each motion intentional and alluring. Ethan's gaze darted to her for the briefest moment before he averted his eyes, his cheeks blooming with a deep shade of red. She drew nearer, her lips brushing against his ear as she murmured softly, "Can you place your trust in me?" Ethan's whole being quaked, his heart thundering within his chest. "Indeed," he murmured, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Olivia smiled, her lips grazing his cheek as she gently withdrew. Her hand glided from his to settle on his thigh, her touch delicate yet undeniable. She sensed the tension emanating from him, the way his muscles quivered beneath her touch. In that fleeting instant, the room held its breath, the atmosphere heavy with expectation. Suddenly, in a moment that took him by surprise, Olivia leaned in and pressed her lips against his. Ethan stood motionless, his form rigid with disbelief. He paused, a whirlwind of thoughts swirling in his mind, yet ultimately, an inner resolve emerged. He surrendered to the kiss, his hands quivering as they sought her waist. Olivia's lips exuded a softness and warmth, the kiss unfolding slowly and deliberately, brimming with unvoiced promises. Her hands glided to his shoulders, drawing him nearer, and Ethan released a gentle moan. The kiss deepened as Olivia led Ethan into a realm of intimacy he had never known before. Her movements exuded confidence, each step deliberate and unhurried. Ethan's hands quivered as they lingered on her waist, caught in a moment of uncertainty, unsure of the next step to take. Yet, Olivia exhibited remarkable patience. She drew back just a fraction, their breaths intertwining as she murmured, "Follow my lead." Her hands glided to his, softly directing them to her hips, then along her sides, instructing him in the art of intentional touch. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he observed her graceful movements, his fingers gliding over the delicate fabric of her dress, sensing the warmth of her skin beneath. Olivia's hands glided to his shoulders, her fingers lightly caressing the nape of his neck as she leaned in for another kiss. This moment was marked by an unwavering resolve. Ethan's hands became more daring, tracing the contours of her form, his heart pounding as he surrendered to the experience. After a moment, Olivia withdrew slightly, her lips grazing his cheek as she murmured, "Just a moment." With a fluid motion, she rose to her feet, her dress dancing gently around her as she glided out of the living room and made her way down the hallway toward the bathroom. Ethan remained seated, his hands quivering, his thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance. The lingering warmth of her lips remained on his, the delicate softness of her skin beneath his fingertips. The atmosphere in the room crackled with an intensity that felt nearly suffocating, leaving him uncertain of how much longer he could endure it. Upon Olivia's return, the red dress was conspicuously absent from her attire. Instead, she lingered in the doorway of the living room, adorned in a black lace nightie that revealed much more than it concealed. The soft material embraced her silhouette, the elaborate pattern highlighting her form in a manner that left Ethan momentarily speechless. Olivia rested against the doorframe, her arms draped casually across her chest, her demeanor a blend of softness and assurance. She observed the way Ethan's eyes grew wide, how his hands gripped the edge of the couch, his knuckles turning pale. "Are you pleased with the view before you?" she inquired, her tone soft and playful. Ethan struggled to articulate a response, his heart racing within his chest, his gaze fixed on her as though she were the sole occupant of the space. He had never encountered her in such a manner before, and the vision of her in lingerie rendered him utterly speechless. With a serene smile, Olivia approached him, her gaze unwavering, each step measured and intentional. She paused before him, her hips moving gently as she extended her hand to lift his chin, compelling him to meet her gaze. "I asked you a question," she said, her tone a blend of playfulness and authority. Ethan gulped, his voice a mere murmur. "Indeed." Olivia's smile grew broader, and she bent closer, her lips grazing his ear as she murmured softly, "Excellent." She stood tall and stepped back, her gaze fixed unwaveringly on him. The atmosphere crackled with intensity, each moment heavy with expectation. Ethan's hands quivered as he extended them toward her, yet Olivia retreated another step, her smile playful and inviting. "Patience," she said, her voice a gentle yet authoritative whisper. Ethan nodded, his breath shallow and quick. He found himself at a crossroads, uncertainty swirling around him, yet one truth stood resolute in his mind. He found himself utterly captivated by her charm. Olivia pivoted gracefully, making her way down the hallway, her hips undulating with each stride. She cast a fleeting look over her shoulder, her gaze intertwining with his as she uttered, "Come with me." Ethan trailed behind Olivia, his heart racing with such intensity that it echoed in his ears. With each step, she moved with intention, her hips swaying gracefully in the black lace nightie that embraced her curves as if it were a second skin. The gentle tap of her heels on the polished hardwood resonated through the stillness of the house, a consistent cadence that mirrored the wild thrum of his heart. As they entered her bedroom, Olivia pivoted to confront him, her back pressed against the doorframe, arms casually crossed over her chest. The gentle radiance of the bedside lamp enveloped her silhouette, creating shadows that rendered her almost otherworldly. She offered a slow, knowing smile and stepped aside, inviting him to enter with a graceful gesture. Ethan paused, his feet seemingly anchored to the ground. He stood at the brink, teetering between the allure of the leap and the safety of retreat. "Step inside," Olivia beckoned, her voice a soft whisper that wrapped around the air like a warm embrace. With a steadying breath, Ethan entered the room, his gaze sweeping across the surroundings. The bedroom exuded warmth and intimacy, the atmosphere heavy with the lingering fragrance of her perfume. The bed lay perfectly arranged, the gentle sheets beckoning, while the lamp on the nightstand emitted a soft, golden light that enveloped the room in warmth. Olivia shut the door softly, pivoting to meet his gaze, her hands gently placed on his chest. She sensed the quickened rhythm of his heart beneath her hands, the tautness of his muscles as he remained there, quivering. "Do you feel a sense of unease?" she inquired, her voice gentle yet inquisitive. Ethan nodded, his throat parched. A hint, he conceded, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Olivia smiled, her thumb gently caressing his cheek. "That's okay," she said, her voice a gentle balm. "We shall proceed at a leisurely pace." She leaned in, pressing her soft, warm lips against his in a tender kiss. The kiss unfolded with a languid grace, steeped in unvoiced vows, and Ethan sensed a gentle easing within himself. His hands found their way to her waist, fingers quivering as they grazed the soft lace of her nightie. Olivia leaned away just a fraction, their breaths intertwining as she murmured softly, "Have faith in me." Ethan inclined his head, his gaze fixed unwaveringly upon hers. With a gentle grip, Olivia guided him towards the bed, each movement measured and intentional. With a delicate motion, she guided him onto the mattress and positioned herself atop him, straddling his waist. Her hands lay gently on his chest, fingers gliding softly over the fabric of his shirt. "Allow me to reveal this to you," she murmured, her tone soft and personal. Ethan's hands quivered as they settled on her hips, his breath catching in his throat as she leaned in to kiss him once more. Her lips brushed against his with a boldness that both exhilarated and unnerved him, and he sensed himself slipping into a state of surrender. Olivia exuded patience and encouragement, leading him gently through the nuances of their inaugural intimate experience. She guided him in the art of touch, revealing the secrets of exploring her body with purpose, instilling in him a sense of confidence in every movement. In this manner, she murmured, her hand steering his to the small of her back. Ethan complied instantly, his fingers gliding over the soft surface of her back. The warmth of her body pressed against his was palpable, her heart beating in sync with his own. Olivia's lips met his once more, the kiss languid and profound, brimming with unvoiced vows. Her hands glided to his shoulders, fingers delicately tracing the nape of his neck as she intensified the kiss. Ethan's hands became more daring, tracing the contours of her body, his heart pounding as he surrendered to the experience. After a moment, Olivia withdrew, her lips grazing his cheek as she murmured, "You're doing well." Her words ignited a surge of confidence within him, and Ethan's hands found their way to the small of her back, drawing her nearer. The night unfolded in a haze of vivid sensations. Gentle caresses, hushed tones, and measured, intentional gestures. As the moment faded, they found themselves intertwined in the bed, their bodies close, hearts still beating with fervor. Olivia leaned against Ethan, her head nestled comfortably on his chest, fingers meandering softly across his skin. "You were incredible," she murmured, her tone gentle and inviting. Ethan offered a warm smile, his hand gently placed on her back. "You taught me well," he murmured, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Olivia let out a gentle laugh, its tone warm and harmonious. "You should take a moment to rest," she urged, her tone gentle and calming. Ethan nodded, his gaze weighed down by fatigue. He drew her nearer, his embrace enveloping her as they surrendered to the gentle pull of slumber. As Ethan awoke, the first thing that caught his attention was the gentle, golden light streaming through the curtains. The room lay in silence, the atmosphere heavy with the fragrance of Olivia's perfume and the residual heat of their closeness. His body was weighted down, muscles unwinding in a manner they hadn't experienced in years, yet a subtle tension lingered in his chest. a realization of the events that transpired and their significance. Olivia lay peacefully beside him, her head nestled against his chest, her arm gently draped over his waist. Her breath came in a measured rhythm, her form nestled against his as though it were her rightful place. Ethan's hand lingered gently on her back, his fingers weaving aimless designs upon her skin as he grappled with the unfolding events of the night. Everything seemed to exist in a dreamlike haze. As if caught in a dream he hesitated to leave behind. Olivia had shown remarkable patience and kindness, leading him through an experience that left him feeling a thrilling mix of exhilaration and vulnerability. She had shown him the art of touch, instilling in him a sense of confidence in his every movement, guiding him to release the fears that had long constrained him. Yet now, under the stark illumination of dawn, the weight of their actions began to settle in. Questions swirled through Ethan's mind like leaves caught in a whirlwind. Concerning Madison, concerning Olivia, concerning the implications of their current situation. A sharp twinge of guilt washed over him. Yet, it was softened by an elusive quality, a sensation he struggled to articulate. Olivia stirred beside him, her eyelids fluttering open as she raised her head to meet his gaze. She offered a gentle, drowsy smile, delicately tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice thick with the remnants of slumber. "Good morning," Ethan responded, his voice scarcely rising above a murmur. Olivia observed him intently, her gaze probing his features as if attempting to decipher the depths of his mind. "Are you all right?" she inquired, her voice soft yet inquisitive. Ethan paused, his hand lingering on her back. I don't know," he admitted, his voice quivering with uncertainty. Olivia nodded, her expression gentle yet perceptive. She adjusted her position, leaning on her elbow to gaze at him more intently. Her hand lay gently on his chest, fingers gliding over his skin in a calming cadence. "It's perfectly normal to feel torn," she said, her voice soft and comforting. "This marks a significant milestone for us both, yet there's no need to unravel every detail at this moment. Just embrace the journey one step at a time." Ethan nodded, his gaze unwavering as it remained locked onto hers. He yearned to trust her, to release the burden of guilt and doubt that pressed heavily upon him, yet the path was far from straightforward. Olivia bent closer, pressing her soft, warm lips against his in a tender kiss. The kiss lingered, soft and gentle, a wordless vow that she would stand by him, come what may. As she withdrew, a smile graced her lips, her hand gently cradling his cheek. "Let us savor this moment together," she spoke, her tone gentle yet resolute. Ethan nodded, his hand gliding to her waist as he drew her nearer. They remained in that moment, bodies intertwined, hearts pulsing in harmony. The room lay in a serene hush, punctuated only by the gentle rhythm of their breaths, and for an ephemeral moment, all seemed perfectly aligned. Olivia finally eased herself out of bed, stretching with a languid grace as she reached for the silken robe that lay elegantly over a chair. She secured it gently around her waist and cast a glance back at Ethan, her smile radiating warmth. "I find myself utterly famished. Perhaps we could indulge in some breakfast?" Ethan nodded, despite the turmoil churning within his stomach. "Absolutely," he murmured softly. Olivia extended her hand, and Ethan grasped it, allowing her to lift him to his feet. He stood there in just his boxers, feeling strangely vulnerable, yet Olivia's composed presence soothed some of his unease. As they entered the kitchen, Olivia set to work, retrieving ingredients from the fridge and cabinets. She cracked eggs into a bowl, whisking them vigorously with a fork, before placing a pan on the stove to warm up. "You're quite skilled at this," Ethan remarked, attempting to ease the atmosphere. Olivia cast a fleeting glance over her shoulder, a smile gracing her lips. She remarked that it took years of practice. "Cooking has always been a passion of mine. It serves as a form of therapy." Ethan nodded, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that spoke volumes. In spite of all that transpired, he found an undeniable solace in her company. While Olivia prepared the meal, she engaged Ethan in a lively dialogue, inquiring about his favorite dishes and reminiscing about her own childhood tales. Her laid-back demeanor alleviated the tension, allowing Ethan to gradually unwind. As the meal reached its culmination, they settled at the quaint table nestled by the window. The morning sunlight poured through the window, enveloping the room in a gentle, golden embrace. "Dig in," Olivia said, her hand sweeping toward the plate of scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh fruit she had lovingly arranged. Ethan lifted his fork, savoring the first bite. The flavors enveloped him in a surprisingly comforting embrace. "This is truly excellent," he remarked, his tone earnest. Olivia beamed with delight. "I'm pleased to hear that you enjoyed it." They dined in a comfortable quietude for a time, the strain between them slowly dissipating. As the task came to a close, Olivia reclined in her chair, her gaze fixed on Ethan, a contemplative look gracing her features. "We need to talk," she said, her voice soft yet laden with gravity. Ethan nodded, a knot forming in his stomach. He anticipated this conversation, yet uncertainty lingered within him about his readiness to face it. Olivia extended her hand across the table, her touch enveloping his with warmth and a sense of reassurance. "I understand this is complex," she murmured, her tone gentle and calming. "I understand that you may be experiencing a whirlwind of emotions at this moment. However, I want you to understand that I have no regrets about what transpired last night, and I sincerely hope you feel the same." Ethan gazed at their hands, his thoughts swirling in a tempest. "I don't regret it," he said softly. "Yet, I find myself at a loss, uncertain of what this signifies for us, for Madison and me." Olivia nodded, her expression one of comprehension. "I understand," she remarked. "I'm not requesting that you make any decisions at this moment. This is quite a bit to digest, and it's perfectly fine to allow yourself the time you need." Ethan gazed at her, his eyes brimming with doubt. "What is it that you desire?" he inquired, his voice scarcely rising above a murmur. Olivia smiled, her thumb gently gliding over the back of his hand. "I want you to be happy," she said, her voice filled with genuine warmth. "I desire to be woven into the fabric of your life, in whatever form that may take. However, my intention is not to impose or create any unnecessary complications. This is your path, Ethan. I am merely here to lend my support." Ethan sensed a tightness in his throat, his feelings in a tumultuous dance. Words eluded him, yet one truth stood clear in his mind. He was profoundly thankful for her understanding and patience. They lingered for a while longer, engaging in a dialogue that danced between the profound and the trivial, the words gliding effortlessly between them. As they completed their task, the sun ascended further into the sky, and the morning began to lose its intimidating edge. While they tidied the table side by side, Olivia cast a glance at Ethan, her lips curving into a smile. "Whatever unfolds," she remarked, her tone imbued with warmth, "together we shall find a way forward."